Inalienable rights and property rights. There's a connection between them, but it's somewhat mysterious. I'm Tony Abbott, and let's see if we can clarify that. As I illustrated in my first video, we humans lack the automatic means of survival common to the lower animals. We can no longer live on the perceptual level in a brute force existence. We must reason, and for that we require freedom from all other men to take the actions we determine appropriate for the maintenance and furtherance of our own lives. The only limitation is that we must respect each other's requirement to do the same. Now we can call this requirement the right to life, and it's all-encompassing. And we can chop up this right into smaller rights, one for each action we can rightfully take. For example, I have the right to do this, and the right to do this, and the right to do this, and the right to do this. Whoops. And it doesn't matter how nonsensical or frivolous the action is, as long as it doesn't interfere with anyone else, I'm within my rights to do it. It's another way of looking at it. Here I am, drinking my coffee that I made with my ingredients from my mug, while sitting in my chair, in my living room, in my house that was built on my real estate. And if I wanted to, I could invite a neighbor in from his house to my house. I'd open the front door and welcome him in and lock the door behind him because, after all, it is my castle and I want to keep out the barbarian hordes. Did I mention that all these things are mine? Did I emphasize that enough? Now, inalienable rights refer to actions. And taking action is all good and well, but you've got to take action with something, and you've got to be somewhere to do it. The only way to rightfully take action is to have legitimate access to the space and items you're going to use to take action with. For example, my coffee from my mug in my house, and you know the rest. Now, if I were to drink coffee somewhere else, I'd need to have legitimate access to the place and the coffee, such as in a coffee shop, or my neighbor's coffee in his house as an invited guest. Here's one more very important point. Owning the property means that you have control over how it is used. So you get the idea. Whatever you do, you have to be somewhere, and you've got to do it with something. And all of these are items of property. Now let's look at trade. Let's say this is your mug, and this is my mug. And you might say, well, I like the other mug better. How about if we trade? And I might say, okay, done. This is now your mug, and this is my mug. The mugs haven't moved, but the rights to them, the property rights, have been exchanged. Here's another example. This is my house. I wasn't the first man to set foot on this land centuries ago, but I did purchase it from the previous owner. I employed a real estate agent who contacted an escrow company and a bank, and I arranged to borrow a sum of money, which I then gave to the previous owner of the house. The house never moved from its spot on the ground, and from anyone else's perspective, nothing happened. But while I was in the escrow office over there, signing the papers, the rights to this house and the sum of money in the bank over there were exchanged. Now, if I don't pay back the bank the money I borrowed, a nice man from the bank will come and visit me and ask me why I haven't been sending him my payments. And I might say to him, well, I've decided to keep both the house and the money I owe you. What happens next? A not-so-nice man comes to visit, and he takes back the house. He doesn't actually take it, but he throws me and my belongings out into the street and sells the house to somebody else. And I wouldn't have any grounds to complain because it was written in the agreement that I signed. Now you might say, but I'm living with relatives or renting an apartment. As I mentioned before, owning the property gives the owner control over it. He can set limitations on how it is to be used and by who. So if you're renting or borrowing property, you have to live within the limitations set by the owner or face the consequences. So you can see that one of the inalienable rights we have is the right to property. That means the right to acquire, hold, use, consume, and dispose of items of property. This right to property is inalienable, cannot be given to us, cannot be taken away. Property rights, on the other hand, are alienable because we can acquire them, we can get rid of them. Now this is the part that I find fascinating, because neither concept is possible without the other. If you think about it, I think you'll find, as I have, that the inalienable right to property and alienable property rights are inseparable. If you try to think of one without the other, you're either going to be faced with a situation where you have the right to own property, but you can't claim any of it, or the property all around us is ownable, but not by you. There's an alternate theory of property, real estate in particular, which is that we don't actually own it, we're just stewards of it, and we pass it on to our descendants. And then you think, well, what happens then? Do our descendants, are they just stewards of the property and they pass it on to their descendants? Does the cycle go on forever? Does anyone ever get to own it? And who makes up these silly rules? There's another theory that I hate too, and that is that all property should be publicly owned in common by everyone. And that means no individual gets to own anything for himself, because the public means everyone except you. The bottom line is that your ownership of property must be recognized and respected. That's the only way you can control your own life. If the concept of private property is abolished, nobody gets to own anything, then nobody has any control over their own lives. That's no way to live. I'll just read you 2 sentences from a book that probably saved me years of mental struggle. The right to life is the source of all rights, and the right to property is their only implementation. Without property rights, no other rights are possible. What I hope you got from this video is that inalienable rights and alienable rights are inseparably intertwined. Neither concept is possible without the other. If you want to learn more, and you haven't yet discovered the works of Ayn Rand, well, now you have, and there's nothing stopping you.